So the first video game ever to be featured on media, such as movies or television shows, was the video game Computer Space in the movie Soylent Green from 1973. Here we can see the actress actually playing the game, and you can tell because she sucks at this game. That little thing there that is flying into enemy spaceships and also getting shot down, that's the player-controlled character, the space rocket. So naturally, the playtime with this game was not simulated because of how bad the actress was. But even the very first video game ever shown in a movie still had a technical error in it. In this film, the actress actually says, "Thank you for this toy."
Thank you for the toy.
I'm glad.
And it was reported that back then, audiences in theaters would laugh at this scene because of the absurdity of having such a high-end item as a toy inside your own personal home. But yeah, this really got me thinking, like, it's absurd how often TV shows and movies get playing a video game wrong for their program. It's almost like they have to go out of their way to play these games incorrectly. And so for this video, I just want to show you several examples of this just because it's funny as hell. That's all. And thank you to the people that responded to my Twitter post to give me a lot of inspiration to cover for this video. So thank you. So we're going to start off with probably one of the most absurd ones. It's Tony Soprano playing Mario Kart 64 with one hand. To Tony's credit, you know what? The dude is playing the game like a mob boss should. A total alpha male. He is holding it like a gun. You know? Hey, appropriate, I suppose, but not appropriate for Mario Kart 64. See, for Mario Kart 64, you do need the A button to at least accelerate, whereas Tony is holding only at best the Z button and the control stick. However, you can see on the screen that, yes, the Mario Kart characters are moving on both screens. So in order to do that, he would need to be holding the acceleration button, which he is not. Another issue is that his son also says that he's working towards the high score.
What are you doing? That's school tomorrow.
Working on a high score.
That's not really something that people do in Grand Prix in Mario Kart 64. To the show's credit, you can actually hear the menus trying to go to the multiplayer mode. However, if you do listen to it, everything's moving way too freaking fast. Actually, Mario is talking over himself, and I guess like in lightning speed somehow, it goes from Mario Grand Prix, which is not a multiplayer option, back to Grand Prix. So technically they're playing Grand Prix together.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go. Watch out for the ghosts.
And that's even properly illustrated on the screen with both of the Sopranos being in 7th and 8th place, meaning that they both suck at this game. And the last major technical error is you can see the player 2 is still operating despite the fact that Tony isn't even holding the control anymore. Well, that's a really good start, isn't it? Next up is Everybody Loves Raymond. This one was really freaking hard to find, you guys. For some reason, on Paramount Plus and other streaming services, even bootleg websites, they just completely clipped out this footage of Ray and Deborah playing Nintendo 64 out of the episode. I don't know why, but that's you will find that to be the case if you try to watch it on Paramount Plus. I found it on a really bootleg website, thankfully, where it's all intact. So this does exist. And my goodness, although they're probably not playing any real game at all, in fact, I can prove that, there's also just no game on this planet that plays the way that Deborah's playing this game right now. She switches from the analog stick to the D-pad on the fly. I don't think any game actually does that. Name one for me, I dare you. And Ray is over here knuckling the B and A button with his index finger, which is really strange. But here's the kicker for you folks. If you were wondering what game they were playing, there is a nondescript game audio that is in the background, so I don't think it belongs to any specific game. And then later on in the next scene, where it's after the cold open, you could see that the controllers are completely unplugged. And if you were to watch this scene to completion, you would see that there was no reason for Ray and Deborah to stand up and unplug the controllers from the game console, to which it doesn't look like it exists anywhere in the scene anyway. And also, the wires don't seem to reach any device that would actually get plugged into. So yeah, the truth is that Deborah and Ray were just playing phantom games with the unplugged controllers. Okay, during this episode of Scrubs, Turk is playing Halo 3 with Janitor. Here's a couple of things that are worth noting. First of all, it's confirmed that it's supposed to be Halo 3 when Carla says, "Hop in the warthog."
Follow my lead and jump in that warthog.
However, the footage that is displayed on screen here is enemy territory Quake Wars. And on top of all that, here's the funniest part of all. Turk is just playing a wired 360 controller with the wire cut off. Also, the footage on screen is a single player screen, not multiplayer. And next up is this scene from House. Yes, House plays Metroid Zero Mission, or so they would lead you to believe. The sound effects don't match up quite right, and the gameplay that is shown on the show clearly didn't even know what they were doing when they were playing the game, since Samus is shooting at pretty much nothing, not even trying to aim for the gamer that happens to hit Samus in this clip. Weirdly enough though, House seems to indicate that he got a game over or something when he goes inside the Chozo statue. Chozo statue is of course only supposed to refill your health and show you where you're supposed to go next. It is not at all an enemy or supposed to hurt you in any way. And in case the interpretation on that was too vague, it happens again later on with this character, and her reaction's more visceral. Then there's this scene from the 40-Year-Old Virgin where Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen are playing Mortal Kombat Deception together. And already off the bat, we can see here that Seth Rogen's playing on a bootleg third-party Nintendo 64 controller, which Mortal Kombat Deception did not come out for. It came out for Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube. Whereas Paul Rudd is actually playing with a game controller that would work with the game. However, it's supposed to be used with both controllers. He seems to only be operating one of those controllers, whereas both controllers combined allows you to play Xbox and GameCube games. And then in Charlie's Angels, there's Final Fantasy VIII being played on the TV, and these two kids are playing with PlayStation controllers, which good for them, but they're mashing buttons, which is something you don't need to do in Final Fantasy VIII, as well as the fact that they seem to both be playing the game when it's a single-player game. And then in the 1995 film Rumble in the Bronx, this kid is playing Game Gear, but with no game inside. As far as bare minimum goes, I feel like that's at least the bare minimum. And if you think that's just a one-off instance, no, it happens every once in a while. Like for example, in Malcolm in the Middle here, it happened twice. Here's one scene where Reese is playing a Game Boy with no game in it. And then there's this scene where Reese is playing a Nintendo 64, and very faintly in the background you can hear him play Mortal Kombat Mythology's Sub-Zero. Now, whether this is related to the dialogue exchange, that's up to you. But there's still one thing that's really weird here. Reese makes the claim that he beat the final level of Mortal Kombat, which calling it a level is already kind of weird in its own right. But then Hal says,
because that's just ridiculous. No one beats Sub-Zero.
Which I think if anybody has played Mortal Kombat knows, Sub-Zero is definitely not the last boss of Mortal Kombat. He's just a selectable character. But it might be on us for assuming that Hal is referring to Sub-Zero as the last boss, instead of just saying that he is a character you eventually have to fight in Mortal Kombat, which is very true. The other thing, though, that is really weird is that he is playing Mythology's Sub-Zero, so in that game, for sure, you don't fight Sub-Zero ever, because you are Sub-Zero always. And then there's this scene in Dexter where he's playing Halo 3. However, he's playing it on a PC, which at the time, Halo 3 did not release on the PC. That wasn't until the Master Chief Collection came out many years later that we would ever see that. Here he's playing with Atari-like sound effects, as well as playing with no mouse, strictly a keyboard. And then in the Chameleon music video, Ride, he mentions a PlayStation 2 controller in his song.
Next to the PlayStation controller.
But as he says that, the music video shows off an original Xbox controller. And next up is the greatest show of all time, Breaking Bad, with Jesse Pinkman playing Rage. See, now here's the big problem with this one. He's playing a game that normally gets played on PC or with a controller, and he's using a light gun. The game is not a light gun game. It is not. So, you know, the fact that he's using a light gun to play Rage just doesn't work, which is really funny because the game has a Breaking Bad Easter egg in it, so you'd think that the producers would go out of their way to make sure that it's played properly. For the movie Chalet Girl, they're actually playing Punch-Out for the Wii, which is always great to see. Love Punch-Out for the Wii. But they get something wrong here too. This character here that's playing the game says, yeah, level 9. Which, I mean, you're just facing Glass Joe, the first fighter the whole game, and even then you don't normally call out the fighters by their level. That's not really explicitly stated anywhere in the game. Hey, once again, two properties I really like a lot. Venture Brothers and Team Fortress 2 coming together for a crossover moment here. We got the Doc playing Team Fortress 2 on the red team, and Sergeant Slaughter playing on the blue team. At a certain point, Dr. Venture kills Sergeant Slaughter in the back, and Sergeant Slaughter says, hey, we're on the same team.
I'm right on the verge of an important breakthrough.
Oh, come on, Doc. We're on the same team here.
Very clear in the footage that they are two different colors. And on top of that, even if they were on the same team, by default, usually friendly fire is not activated in Team Fortress 2. It is possible, but it's just not something that you tend to see. In the movie Beethoven, we got two of these kids playing Super Mario Bros. 3, but they're coaching each other as if there's a co-op feature that seems to be existing on screen at the same time. You can just listen to the dialogue here.
Okay, fine. All right, Bryce, I'm gonna get that thing right there, okay? Okay, that leaf's mine. I get the next one. Okay, fine. Get that question block.
And as you know, Super Mario Bros. 3 takes turns with its multiplayer. It's not on-screen co-op like it was in New Super Mario Bros. Wii onward. And lastly, what I want to talk about today is The Wizard, because The Wizard's a completely video game-based movie. So you think that they'd get everything right. And honestly, scrubbing through all the video game parts of the movie, There's a lot of stuff that they did their homework on, so I have a little bit of respect for what they did with this film, but it's still not without its mistakes, a little bit of movie magic, if you will. For example, the very first thing that happens in the film is that Jimmy's playing Double Dragon, and he's mashing the buttons and everything, and the movie's supposed to imply that Jimmy is getting a handle on the game and doing well, but in truth, the footage that's shown on screen is just the opening cutscene where the player's not even in control of the game yet. Also, they mentioned at a certain point that Jimmy made 50,000 points in Double Dragon, and at the stage of the game that they were at, it's actually physically impossible to get that many points.
50,000? You got 50,000 on Double Dragon?
Which I guess would be really impressive if his brother saw that, but I mean, frankly, without glitching, it's not possible.
I got past the River Devil.
Also, there's this scene where the father is playing Zelda 2, and once again, he's spewing a lot of facts about the game that lines up with the actual events of the game. But the one major problem here is that it's scripted that the son turns off the game console, but how does he do that? Well, the only thing that he actually does is remove the controller from the controller port, which, yeah, the NES systems are a bit finicky, and I guess it could have just dislodged the game and made it reset or just turn off by glitching, but it just seems more likely that what they thought here was that the son was actually unhooking the game console when he hadn't done that yet.